Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am super excited to show you this doll because it is part of a swap. I asked Blankspacedolls on Instagram if he would like to collaborate with me in this swap, and luckily he said yes. So these are the fabrics he sent me, which I thought were beautiful. And the theme around this swap is we had to send each other our scrap fabrics, and then we had to create a doll for each other using only those fabrics. So here I'm deciding if I wanted to use a combination of this red fabric with the blue or the purple and the blue. I had already planned on making a color block skirt, so that's kind of what I was deciding there. And this fabric already had a hem on it, so I used it on top of the color block, which I thought was going to look really cool, and luckily it did. It looked really nice. For her top, I decided to make a bra because I had already planned on making her a denim jacket, and I didn't want something to be bulky underneath it. So I made a pattern from scratch and then I color blocked it using the same fabric I used for her skirt. And later I added some Velcro to the back to close it. To make her color block skirt, I cut out 3 squares of the purple fabric and 3 squares of the blue fabric and lined them up every other and just sewed them together to make a long strip. After I sewed them together, I glued down the extra seam allowance that I had left so it wasn't bulky underneath the skirt, and then I hemmed one side of the skirt using a black thread because I wanted it to kind of match with the black see-through fabric I was going to use on top. Here is the skirt all ruffled. I forgot to record this part, but what I did was cut out a long strip of the black fabric and I sewed it on top of the skirt, and then with one side of the thread that you have left, you pull it and it makes these ruffles. This technique is used by a lot of sewers in order to make skirts for dolls, and it works really well for dresses too because it creates the cinched waist kind of look. So I think this is what a lot of people use, so if you want to make dresses or even skirts for your dolls, make sure you remember this. To finish off her skirt, I used this leather to hem the top part of her skirt and added a snap, and it's the same leather I'm using for her jacket. I found this Michelle mermaid doll at the store Tuesday morning. She was only about $7, and when I saw her, I thought this would be perfect for this swap. When I found this doll, I had already made her skirt and I knew that the jacket was going to be black too. So when I saw her, I thought this was going to be perfect for this swap because since her outfit was already going to be black and, you know, be a little bit darker, I really wanted a doll whose hair would pop and contrast against the outfit. And then seeing that she already had this purple streak through her hair really sealed the deal for me. So after wiping her face with 100% pure acetone, I covered her hair back and wrapped her body using some scrap fabric that I had and sprayed her with MSC. I actually started this doll's face up when I was watching Jacob's live stream on Instagram, so if you guys are interested in watching those, I highly recommend following him there. So I sped up the face up a lot because if I didn't, it would get really long. So what I started with was I outlined her eye using a light brown colored pencil, and I outline it usually with the last eyelash or the bottom eyeliner, and then I add the top lashes. For me, I start with this because it makes me know that I'm symmetrical, because when I realize that I'm off later down the line, it makes me really frustrated that I didn't catch it early on. So this makes me know that I'm you know, as close to perfectly even, not completely, but yeah. And then I use a purple to draw in her pupil, and then I outline it with a white, and the pink is for kind of the watery part of an eye. And I use purple for her pupil because, I mean, it's pretty obvious that purple is a big color theme in this doll. Then I use a blue colored pencil, a pink colored pencil, and a white colored pencil to give her eyeshadow. I normally use chalk pastels, but for this doll I really wanted it to be vibrant and stand out. For a majority of this face up, I went back and forth with highlights and shadows and just adding layers of color just to make it stand out. So if there's any weird pauses in this video, it's just because it's pretty obvious what I'm doing. I'm just going back and layering all the colors. Here I'm using a dark brown watercolor pencil to go over her eyelashes. I didn't use a black because I didn't want the makeup to feel heavy. I wanted to give her kind of a more serious, seductive look, but I didn't want her makeup to look heavy, if you know what I mean. And this is how I make my doll's eyebrows even. I use a colored pencil and just kind of figure out where the placement might be. This is how I draw my doll's eyebrows. I usually have a dark color on the outer edges, and I use that same color to draw the hairs in the inside of the eyebrow. And then I use a light colored pencil to highlight under the brow. I used to not add bottom lashes to my dolls just because I never liked the way they looked, but this kind of reminds me of the top lashes, and making them really small and delicate is my favorite, so that's what I went with on this doll. So the left side has a lot more detail, a lot more color. I just want to show you the difference of the layers. And this is the doll after I've sprayed her at least 2 more times and just layered up all the colors and highlights and shadows. Making this jacket was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. I think it's because I had just made a jacket for my first male doll, which was the Dylan Gardner doll. So if you haven't watched that video, you should definitely go check it out. I basically used the same techniques I used for that jacket in this one because it was almost the same look, it was just a little bit smaller, and for the bottom of the jacket I made it higher so it reached her waist, not, you know, towards the thigh area, I guess. Here I remembered that I needed a fabric to have underneath the jacket, that way it would give a close hemline and a clean line in the inside of the neck area. And I actually wish I made that little piece of fabric a little bit bigger because it didn't give me much room for error when I sewed the collar around it. Then I sewed this extra piece of fabric around the end of the sleeve, and it didn't really add too much, but it did add stability under the jacket. So by adding this piece of fabric, it kind of gave a clean edge to the jacket, which I was really happy with, and it made the sewing around the leather fabric a little bit cleaner. just because that leather fabric is pretty thin. And here I'm showing you how I messed up on the collar. I was going to add this little extra piece underneath it and then turn it inside out, but the leather is too thin for that. So all I did was cut it out, make sure that the edges were clean because it didn't fray, and then I was going to go around and add this detail around the collar. Here I'm showing you all the pieces I have. All I have left to do is to sew on the sleeves and add the collar, and it actually took me a lot longer than I thought to make this jacket. I think it took me about 3 to 4 hours, but I'm really glad I spent the time making it perfect and how I wanted it, because it was pretty tricky, but definitely worth the time if you want a crisp looking jacket. Here I'm showing you how the sleeves kind of puckered around the top part. So what I did was sew them down, and I actually really liked it because it added more detail to the jacket. This by far was the most difficult part of the jacket because I knew it was going to be the standout piece, and it took me a while. I had to kind of manually adjust the sewing machine, but it looked really good at the end. And after you have this done, you basically just fold that raw edge underneath, and it gives you a crisp line underneath the jacket. After I added the collar, all I had left to do was to close the sleeves and the edge of the jacket, and it was pretty much done. Here I'm trying the jacket on a spare doll that I had, and the back piece actually fit kind of big on her, so what I did was sew a dart down the center of the jacket, and it pretty much solved it for me. It made it tighter and it fit her really well. These are the accessories I decided to pair with this doll. The boots I thought were very cute and very punk looking, so since that's basically this whole doll aesthetic, I thought they were perfect. Here is one of the boots repainted. I really like how it looked, but I wanted the accessories to look a little bit more worn and a little bit more dirty, so I brushed them lightly with a white acrylic paint in order to make it look, dirty, worn, rustic, and I think it looks really nice on the doll. Since I wanted to give a little bit of my style in this doll, since it is a swap, I decided to give her a charm bottle purse, and I used the stars in this jar that Jacob had given me to kind of theme around the doll. So I used the star bottle, and I used the little gems that he had given me to accessorize and add to the doll in small ways. Obviously you can see on the stand I am giving him, there's a big star on it, and I kind of bedazzled each accessory with these stars, as you can see in the necklace. I also decided to paint her nails because I normally don't, but I thought I needed a little bit more blue in her design, so thought I could just sneak it in there. I decided to keep her hairstyle pretty simple. It was really long and soft, so I didn't want to do anything too crazy to it. Here I am finishing the doll and putting her together with all of her clothes and accessories. While working in this swap, Jacob and I had actually talked about how, as artists, our styles are very yin-yang. He works with a lot of textures, and I work with a lot of fabric patterns. So since these were fabrics I normally wouldn't buy myself, it was kind of challenging to create a doll using only these, but it was really fun because I knew Jacob would love these fabrics, obviously, since he sent them. And these are pictures of the finished doll. I ended up trimming the side bangs a little bit more so you could see her outfit. Another big thanks to Jacob for working with me in this swap. I know he's gonna love her, and I'm super excited to see him unbox her. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in another video.